Hello, everybody. I'm Martin Shrimpton, and this is a coaching room event. I'm joined by Max. Give us a little wave, Max, and he'll have some information at the end. And Joseph. Welcome, Joseph. This is going to be me asking for your perspective on what you're doing with a particular program, and it's following up from a session we did with Jay last week. So it may be similar, maybe different for those watching now, and there's going to be a blog on the website on last week's session, so you can watch that, read that in time. Joseph, welcome. What would you like to say? What would you like people to hear?
That's what I'd like to say. So I had a quick look at what Jay shared last week, and I guess to complement that, looking at but I guess one of the key principles that we want people to be able to embody and realize through the integral semantics training is that it isn't about preparation. It isn't about having things structured in advance. It's really about the capacity to facilitate from the present moment, from being who they are. So most facilitation skills trainings are about techniques. They're about what to do, how to galvanize the audience, how to use the format, the why, the what, the what if, and all of that stuff's got a place. But there aren't very many organizations, and we don't know of any in Australia, that are training people to facilitate through being and through presencing and through, what's available to them in the moment, and integrating the masculine and feminine energies into, sure, there's a structure that we may go through, and there's also an okayness and a spaciousness around all of that if we don't go into any of that. And so facilitating the group from the group's need and from the group's view, and accessing basic knowledge in the present moment, in the context that the facilitator finds themselves in.
Okay, great. Let me ask a few questions on that then. Part of my curiosity, how does this relate to outcomes with NLP? A lot of people are focused on outcomes. We know of old that's very much, it's like, this is the outcome and then going after the outcome. This sounds a different approach to that. Would that be right or wrong, or somewhere in between?
So I think it's a little bit like the problem's never the problem, and knowing that. The problem's never the problem. Hey, the problem is never the problem. Yeah. The problem causes the search. Hey, the problem causes the purchase, the problem. But actually, the problem isn't ever the problem. In terms of outcomes in facilitating training and facilitating groups, the agreed outcome is never the outcome that they want. It just isn't. Yeah, they don't want to know more about leadership. They don't want to know more. What they tell you they want isn't what they actually want. And so what they actually want is to be able to be their self, be free of costs response, free of the facade, free of the politics, free of the hierarchies, free of the investment of their self. They do not want to be safe. They want to be dynamic. They want to be able to, send a bolt of lightning across the room in terms of taking a position, taking a stand, and have a facilitator that can absorb and redirect and manage that. And they want to get into conflicts and agreements and disagreements with each other in a way where it's managed, where it's not about safety, but it's about significance. And so the facilitator needs to be able to be the conductor that truly facilitates these energetics, these dynamics, these lightning bolts, the CEO, putting across a disagreement to the group and being able to manage any position any individual in the group finds, to be able to hold the individual's energy, to be able to maintain their position, whatever their position is, of the 5 positions that they may hold, and to be with the whole. So integral semantic facilitators don't facilitate groups, they facilitate wholes with a W. And one of the key ways of doing that is by recognizing and being a part of the whole, not separate from. And so even to the point of the practices that we've got in the training of bringing awareness to yourself as an object in this whole. You know, so that the separation disappears. And if the separation can disappear, then the hierarchy and the I'm the trainer and you're the student, all of that starts to disappear. And there's just this emergent property of non-separate capacity for this whole to realize something.
Okay, so let's look at an example within a corporate context for people. So people put themselves in the mindset of the facilitator for a second. Could you give a run through of how this can play out so that people can get a sense from their perspective of what it would look like?
Yeah, so some information is shared, which is part of the structure of the day, part of the structure of the training. Somebody disagrees, takes a position, which is one on the facilitator's matrix, takes a position which may not be a stance against the information shared, but just a position. They may say, I understand that, but I understand it quite differently. I think that might be out of date. Yeah. And so as a facilitator being paid your $2 grand, 10 grand a day, whatever it is you're being paid, you now have a dynamic with 30 people where one person has taken a lightweight stand in opposition to your offer as the facilitator. Now what do you do? Agree to disagree, classically. Get into a conflict with the person. Curtail to the rightness of their view. Now your credibility and your authority is just, what do you do? Let's just leave. If anybody's listening to the call, be with that. What? Now what? We've all worked with groups. We've all been part of a group. This is one single person out of a group of 30 people taking a relatively lightweight stand in opposition to what you've just shared as a piece of information. Yeah, and so you're standing there, now what? And just as you're thinking, now what, there's a guy at the back of the room that bumped shoulders with you by accident, spilled his tea on his hand, who actually says, I actually agree with Bob too. I agree with Jim on that view. I think this is a bit out of date. Now what do you do? Now the CEO or the sponsor of the corporate gig that you've got is looking at you with uncertainty. Now what do you do? Well, squirm, raise your voice to get, what do you do? What's the mind doing on the inside of doing facilitation? How do I handle this? What should I say? What are they going to think? I'm losing face here. This is going, you know, you can get that whole internal critic thing going. Hey, now your physiology is having an effect because you're an energetic system. Now there's some coloring and your voice is getting a little bit croaky and the depth is disappearing in your body. A couple of people at the back of the room are shaking their head. Now what? This is only in 3 minutes to your opening. So if you get a sense of what's that like, it's about being able to be with that in the moment. Yeah, being able to have the capacity, not to need to get to your next piece of information, but to be able to be with that group. Yeah, and really to acknowledge and recognize. So there's some energy in this room. There's several views that see this to be different to how it's been shared. Thank you for sharing. Next bit. You see the difference? There wasn't anything done with it. The frame of proving that you're right, that you are the authority, and this is where the apex of self and other referenced in authority, one of the apex practices that we have, enables you to integrate. There is no authority in this room. There's simply a process, and it's purely informational. And now you haven't lost anything, but now you've gained 3 or 4 other perspectives of information on this point that the group's now got.
Let's take it out of a business context and take it to a more personal context, because I know some people may want to look at how they can apply this. Relationships, family dynamic, and so on. Do you want to talk a little to the family side of things?
Well, I think it's kind of the same. It's really being able to be with the energies. Energies in information energy, same thing. It's being with the dynamics. It's not being invested in a position, but being able to take the 5 positions across the facilitations matrix. A comment might move me back to place, and back to place means I'm just going to ignore that person. No any actual interest. I'm going to move on. It might take me into a position where I'm in opposition to that person, that family member. And then there's dynamics in being a facilitator, integral semantic facilitator, to be able to meet that person where they are. Yeah, there's a position within the facilitation to be able to see the intradependent view of that position plus my position, and take a paradoxical view that actually I can hear my wife taking an opposition to my position, and I can hear we're both actually after the best for our children. So I'll take that position with her. Since we're both trying to save and solve the same problem here. Can you see it? So do you see it's this almost ghost-like capacity, this spirit-based capacity to move across these facilitation matrix in a way that's not even noticeable to the other person until you land there. And if the energy is really strong, now you're not hearing me, then I may move back to that position with that person. If it feels, and this is what integral semantics is about, is if it feels like there's spaciousness there. Yeah. If it doesn't feel like there's spaciousness there, then moving back to the first position on the matrix, if you've got that slide, people can see it, the place, is an embodied, and here's I can give lots of juice away, hey, but here's the thing, in that first place, it's just an authentic defenselessness. People aren't good at it. Their whole life has been defending something. Yeah, and if you're paid to deliver something, in other words, you're attacking the current view around leadership or coaching or HR, whatever it is, now you're being paid to, in essence, end something and rebirth something new. And so we're always pushing to control, or we're trying to defend some position that we have, which is cathartically invested in being the facilitator, being the husband, being the boss, being right, whatever the persona is. And so integral semantics is about facilitating the student in the training to be free from their shit, to be free from being someone. Facilitating doesn't require somebody to do it, it just requires it to be done. And so I don't know if you can hear this kind of very gentle, very somatic, in the body, energetic capacity, almost like the phantom, how you've seen the cartoon, the pub, just to be able to morph and shape across these 5 positions within a gentle and definite and absolutely free view, free way of being in the world, to the point that the average human being that you're going to facilitate cannot even see the 5th position on the integral semantics matrix. So you can get to hang out and not even be there. Just at the omega point of reality, they don't even see it. They can see there's a body there, but they don't get what's going on. And everything that happens is intended. If they spend the entire day in confusion, that's intended. Not created, intended. because that's obviously what they were ready for, because that's what they brought forth.
Let's talk about what people will pay for in an organization. We're talking about this as a program, but also as a skill set. Organizations receive this. How can people position themselves to do it?
So people genuinely pay for skillful disruption that they don't want.
Yeah.
That they are desperate for.
Yeah.
And so integral semantics is exactly that. It's being able to play, it's being able to be fun, it's being able to be deeply painful, being direct. It's about being impervious. It's just about being untouchable and touching at the same time. Okay. It's about being able to receive derogatory comments towards the material, towards how the program is going, and being able to use everything. Everything is usable in the moment. Everything to profound outcomes for people. To knowing how to be and respond, and when to respond and when not to respond. In corporates, and this isn't any disrespect to anybody in corporates, but this is just a generalization. Corporates don't even know the difference when they make a statement. They expect an answer from you. Well, I can hear it's a statement. They aren't going to get an answer. And they're going, well, then I'm going, well, then what? I heard you made a statement. Did you hear that? Or did you think you asked something? And they either sit up or they sit down, hey. And that's not to put them down. That is not to rebalance the, you know, the status. That's to be with what's actually true. And as they hear it back, they'll hear, well, I don't really agree with that. They'll hear they said that, but they respond, but they didn't ask anything. So you can do an integral semantic smile. We bring those in boxes. You know, at the class, we dish them out. Integral semantic smiles, which is a smile which doesn't have to do anything. Moving on. Maybe the person goes, look, I feel ignored. Go, I hear you. So as now you're acknowledged, do you need to talk more about that? No. Okay, now back to, do you see there's this very intentional way of being in the world, which is 100% not privileging the individual and not privileging the whole. It's just simply being with and on point to what you're about.
Jumping back. A little delay. Skillful disruption. I like that. What does it look like after the event?
For them or for us?
Either both. For them primarily.
So if they've engaged us for the day, we norm till like 4:30 or 5. Skillful disruption looks like we're leaving unplanned at 2:30. Leaving them to do the work. And they're in shock about that because they've paid us whatever they've paid us to be there for the whole day. And we're wandering down the road with our bag over our shoulder, waving out. They've got no idea we've even left. Hey, but what we know is they're ready for not us. They're now ready to reorganize just with themselves, just with their leader, just with their CEO, and they need to find their way to bring this together. And this is about, it's about maturing, hey, facilitation. And we don't walk out in a planned way, we leave spontaneously. You know, it's a real alchemist view of the energetics of the readiness and the ripeness and the rightness of this group. First time I felt that, Jay and I were training some council and it's 2:30 and we're there till 4:30. and I'm packing my stuff up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're leaving." It's like, and then in that moment, he's like, "Yeah, we are leaving." Hey, and we grabbed our stuff, and they could see us. Hey, they're sitting there. It's like end of dinner time, and we've got our stuff. He's packed the laptop up, and we're out the door walking down the road. And the sponsor, the CEO, is out the door going, "Boys, where are you going?" And we're like, "Catch you. See you next time, maybe." Well, they had an amazing afternoon. He really stepped into his own leadership and his direction because he had to. Well, hey, that was the brief. This team needs to lead. This team needs to come together. So we gave them that opportunity. But it wasn't rehearsed and planned. It was just right. It was the basic knowledge truly available in the moment as absolutely right. It isn't that we had enough, because we don't work particularly anyway in those spaces.
So let's talk about the program. How many days do if they join?
So these, as far as I can remember, should be uploading all of the integral semantic distinctions, uploading the integral semantic facilitators, uploading, the dynamics and the principles of the program. And then the following 3 days is actually 3 days of feeding that knowledge forward in facilitating groups, 3, 4, 5 people, 9 people with a particular topic, with energetic dynamics in there, with people that aren't going to agree. You may or may not know what kind of group you're going to get, and being able to share something that's not only current, but is really important to you, like you feel invested in, like Donald Trump running the United States, or racism in Australia, or the political party, just something that is close to your heart in an invested way, because we want you to be able to be moved and unmoved simultaneously. In a real way, we want you to practice having this quadratic reality behind you, this beautiful universal dance of the integral semantics facilitation matrix in front of you, as you then use all of the distinctions of all the language skills that you've picked up in the first 3 days in facilitating present with a whole, in a singular view with an outcome. Taking disruption, managing dynamics, practicing your move. So at the end of that 3 days, you are now at the beginning of a deeply skilled and embodied integral semantic facilitator. At the beginning, we're not going to pretend you're going to be masterful any more than you would be with the violin. But you've got the foundations, you know the principles, you've had practice, now go do that. Go be that. From a developmental perspective, the managing of a group moves from concrete through causal through non-dual across those 5 spaces. And so the APAC's attention practices that we have, the ARPs, are basically taking polarities and integrating them in an apex move, which is the paradox. Yeah, like for example, dealing with global versus detailed people in the group. Or do you need to give information for the detailed people? Do you need to give information for the global people? Well, in an ARP practice, you get to integrate global and detail, and they disappear. And so as a facilitator, that wonder and concern about detailed and global people, it disappears. Because you see through the duality of those positions and see that they're not real, and you recognize transcendentally what is actually true, and now you facilitate from there. And so we have got a dozen really facilitation specific polarity practices, which we do throughout the 6 days, that when you come out, whether you know it or not, you've got a non-dual awareness around these contexts in facilitating. And your job's to practice them and practice them and practice them. And as you do these ARP practices with an actual pole, we provide you with a polarity pole, like a broomstick, fancy word, polarity pole. Yeah. And sit on the floor and move kinesthetically and feel the energetics of these positions and these views. and then notice the integration point, the polarity, and then notice the omega point of the realization in a non-dualistic way of the fact that that's a dualistic view. And what that does, Martin, is it just undoes and undoes and undoes and undoes. Hey, even to the point of self and other. That's part of the polarity of self and other. Just if we look at it really simply, the only way you got a sense of that self is because of the other. The only way the other's got a sense of the other is because of the self. So they are interdependent realities, and they aren't true in and of themselves. So there is no self or other. Well, that's part of the integration in the apex of being able to be a part of a whole and not a me and a you lot. And of course, it depends on the person's readiness. There's benefit for everybody in it. And authorities, and right and wrong, and good and bad, and happy and just the whole, and life and death, and beginning and end, and static and process. And let's just integrate all of that rubbish, which it absolutely is, out of the system of you as a facilitator and be in the world.
Excellent. Max, come on in. Next, come on in. Next. For the community.
Yes, so we start in July. It's a 6-day program. As Jay mentioned last week, we're offering a community special for those who are on this call. And so get in contact with me, max.young@thecoachingroom.com.au to find out what the special is, and hopefully we'll see you in the room.
You don't know what the special is yet?
I do. Yep.
Tell us then.
So the full price of the program is $3,300. For the community, we're running a special of $3,000, and the normal payment options apply. So that's 10% off for an upfront payment, or a 6-month payment plan, interest-free.
Okay. And so we've got people on the call tonight, Max, you can see?
No, so I can see some people who are commenting on the call. If you are, comment here, and we can get in contact with you if you'd like to have a chat.
Great stuff. And just give a shout out to your email address and the phone number as well for people watching this in the future, if you would, please, Max. Yes,
so the email address again is max.young@thecoachingroom.com.au. Phone number is 1300-858-089.
There we go. Fantastic. That was a great, another perspective. After Jay's perspective last week, we went through the program. So do check out the blog that will be there very shortly. And also we'll make this into a blog as well. And you can go back through, and I've got to say, I think it gets into something that is a next stage. I think that people, if they've got NLP training and things like that, it's a fantastic foundation. This is something which is, I think it's another level, and I think it ties into other things that we're working on in the coaching room as well. So from a development point of view, as well as from a business or monetizing your learning point of view, I think you've got two things that are going to happen here. Take care. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Max. We shall see you all next time.